I think this may be one of my favorite topics. It's definitely an area that I have wanted to improve upon. And I don't think it's a strength of mine. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you are an entrepreneur, a small business owner, maybe even a medium-sized business owner, and you know that a large segment of your business resides somewhere on LinkedIn, and you in the back of your mind, you just know somehow, not just that you need a better LinkedIn profile, but you kind of look at yourself as like, do I like my brand? Do I like the way that I'm presenting myself online? It's something that we have to think about, particularly us sales, marketing, and entrepreneurs, business owners. People like to check you out online. They want to just see what kind of presence that you have, what's your thought leadership, what are you talking about, what are the things that matter to you. And it's kind of a subtle way for people to kind of, professionally stalk you, I guess, and not to be creepy, but to figure out if there's someone that they should, want to talk to. And so it's as I say, it's an area that I don't think I am great at. And so I've been looking for Liam, and Liam just went away. Liam just shrunk. What happened?
I was
You
moving
just went away.
my desk. Sorry.
And this, wait, we're coming back.
There we go.
Now we're back. That's great. So you have one of those, is that one of those stand-up desks?
Yes, sir.
I just got one of those.
Nice. They're awesome.
They said sitting is the new smoking.
Really? I've not heard that, but I know my body feels more sore when I spend my whole day in my chair versus up and down. So
Exactly.
makes sense.
Exactly. I think there's something to it. I've enjoyed it. I don't stand up all day. I'm not that obsessed with it, but I do like it. How in the world did you find yourself in this particular space? I don't know that anyone wakes up and says, I'm going to be a brand expert. When did you realize that this was a superpower of yours? That's something that by the way, your LinkedIn profile is beautiful. I've looked at it. You've got like a gazillion followers. So I thought you're definitely going to be the perfect guy to talk to us today.
Thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think you're right. I didn't wake up thinking I didn't graduate from college thinking I was going to be in branding. I went to school like anybody else and tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I ended up getting into recruiting out of college, and I wound up at startups, doing a lot of more operational work. I kind of built a career for myself as a bit of a Swiss Army knife in technology startups. And so I would, get assigned to a project and I'd knock that out, and then they'd put me on something else. And I was just really good at getting things done. But my mindset was always marketing, right? I spent my 18 years or 15 years in my career basically.
Careful, don't date yourself. It is a rule. Shh.
Yeah.
Let people guess.
That's right. All right. Well, I spent the majority of my career in operations thinking I should have been in marketing. And I got pretty senior at the operations level, senior director, VP level. And I just thought I can't start over now. And I started spending time on LinkedIn in 2020. I've been on LinkedIn since 2004, but I started to really intentionally spend time on the platform in 2020.
That's like the start of COVID era.
That's right. I was spending a lot of time on the platform consuming content. And like many people, I had that feeling that I shouldn't be posting content on LinkedIn because what would my peers think? What would my boss think? Would they think I'm looking for a job? But really, I just enjoyed the community on LinkedIn because, people talk about business on the platform. There's a lot of really useful information there. And people generally are networking minded. There's a really supportive community. I like to say that LinkedIn is the emotionally intelligent social network. And so I liked spending time there because there was so much negativity on other social platforms, and I just didn't really feel like that was my place to hang out. So that's when I started spending time on LinkedIn. And within 2 years or so of me doing that, a CMO from a tech company reached out to me and said that he was building an employer branding team, talent marketing team at his organization, and he thought I'd be the perfect person to do that job. And I was flattered by that, but
You're like,
I had to
what?
ask. I had
I
to
would
ask,
be.
right? I was like, I don't even have brand or marketing on my resume. Why are you talking to me? And his response was, well, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 6 months and I've pretty much seen all I need to see. If you can do for our company and our recruiting brand
Interesting.
what you've done for yourself, I think you'll knock this out of the park. And I think the combination of that skill plus the fact that I'd been in sales operations for so long, I knew how to think systematically. I knew how to think about automating outreach to an audience, whether that's recruiting or sales professionals, et cetera. And so he kind of synthesized those two skills and said this would be the perfect fit for this role. And he said, I don't have a job description written, but I think you're the perfect person to write it. And so I basically got to tailor the job to myself, which I think, as you know, as a talent professional, that's a pretty unique opportunity. So I did that, took the job. 2 years after that, we were sold for a little over $1 billion. And then 6 months
You mind if I
later,
ask? I should know this. Who
yeah,
was this?
it was Willow Tree. It's a technology company
I have
that
heard of Willow Tree.
built mobile apps for Fortune 500 companies, essentially.
$1 billion sale. Wow.
Yeah,
Hopefully you got a small little crumble out of that.
I did get a little crumble. That was part of the other allure of going, is that they basically provided a pretty solid incentive, and so I ended up taking that role. We were acquired 6 months after that. I was let go, which I was fully expecting, and the company did right by me on the exit as well.
Great.
And I don't have hard feelings about that stuff. It's just
No, that's
business,
just
right?
business.
Yeah. And so then I was at a crossroads. I was sort of like, do I go back into operations where I have the bulk of my experience working at startups? Do I maybe go work in employer branding at a larger company? Because that's usually what larger organizations have. Smaller organizations don't usually invest in it. And I'm not really a big company guy. Startups are kind of my thing. So uh, that wasn't really appealing to me. And then I had the third option, which was, do I start my own company and basically teach people how to manifest serendipity on LinkedIn the way that I learned how to do, almost by accident. And my wife was very supportive. Said, you've been talking about this idea of going out on your own and coaching people on how to make the most of this platform for years now. You should listen to that. Now you've got some runway. There's no better time to do it than now. We'll know pretty quickly if it's a sustainable thing or not. So just take the risk. And that was August
Well, I
2023.
like
So
your wife. I mean,
yeah, she's awesome.
that's sage, a very sage wisdom,
I'm
and
a
it's good to
very
have, seriously, it's great to have someone behind you like that, obviously your spouse is someone that should be a confidant of yours, but to really give you that support and the go ahead, like take the risk,
yeah.
we'll do it as together as a family. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. And so I started my business in August of 23, and that is about 2 years ago now. So I haven't
So
missed a
you're the
mortgage
perfect person
payment
for us
yet.
to talk about this now, and this is kind of
Indeed.
what's been on my mind, maybe, or we'll see. But this has been on my mind, like in marketing, or if you're a business owner, you have to be thinking about who is your ICP, who is your ideal customer, what does the profile look like, and trying to identify that marketplace on LinkedIn can be challenging. So, how do you go about finding your ICP and then projecting yourself to that ICP as someone who can solve whatever problems that they're having? So, can you kind of walk us through, teach us, how
Yeah,
to go about this
sure.
process?
Absolutely. So, eventually I didn't have like a well thought out strategy in the beginning, right? Because I had sort of fallen into this experience of LinkedIn being this opportunity machine, and but shortly after I started, I kind of started thinking about, well, how do I do this? And I basically came up with four core pillars for how you optimize your LinkedIn presence and start using the platform for your benefit. The first pillar is obviously your profile. I think a lot of people underestimate the potential of the LinkedIn profile. There are a lot of features that many people don't really know how to use. They don't even know they exist. And so, they're basically just using it as a storage utility for their their job experience in the work experience section, and maybe they have some recommendations from people and some endorsements, but they're not really building their profile the way that they would another social media profile. And that's, sort of challenging because this is where most people go when they are considering you for a position, or if they're looking to maybe do work with you, if you're a consultant or a coach or a founder of a business, they're going to go to LinkedIn and they're going to check out your profile. So it really is important to have that dialed in. And I tell people to treat their profile less like a regurgitation of their resume and more like a landing page, as if they're marketing themselves. And in doing that, my sort of MO is your resume tells people what you've done, where you've done it, and when you've done those things. It's very one dimensional. It's not a whole lot of personality, short form,
It's kind of
bullets, etc.
static, honestly.
Right.
It's like just like a
Very
static
static. There's
snapshot, you know?
no personality in a resume,
Mm-mm.
right? It's just cold hard facts about
And
how
they've kind of
great
told
you
you to
are.
take your personality out in some ways. I mean, unless you're a really creative person, in which case you don't even really have a resume, right? You've got your book,
Yep.
your portfolio. Yeah,
Yep.
they've kind of told us over the years, strip that stuff out.
Right. Right. And I think that does you a disservice if you listen to that advice, because when you think about it, professionals are people, people have personalities, and our personalities are a very large part of our success.
It's
Companies
true.
hire us because of what we know how to do, but also because they think that we're going to be a good fit for their company, their team. They trust us to use our personality with our colleagues, with clients, with customers. And so the fact that there's this disconnect and says, well, you can't put your personality out on LinkedIn, just doesn't seem logical, right? You're using your personality in every other aspect of business. Why wouldn't you use it on your LinkedIn profile? So I tell people to complement their resume, the what, when, and where, with their LinkedIn profile, and talking about who they are and why they do what they do and how they do what they do. And if you combine those things, then you have what I call the 5W1H method. And that is, who, what, when, where, why, and how. And that amalgamation of things is essentially the foundation of a really strong personal brand, because you're covering all the bases and you're letting people get to know the real you behind the things that you've accomplished. So let people know the who behind what you do. That's how I approach LinkedIn. And that applies to anybody. If you're a business founder, your potential customers or clients or partners are going to look at your LinkedIn profile, and they're going to want to get a sense for, is this somebody I'd like to work with? And the more that you can put that out there, the more you will attract the right audience, right? The best brands attract the right audience and detract the wrong ones. So you want to be putting that content out there into your profile. That's the number one pillar.
I know that's, I guess, the profile. That's the first of the four pillars. I take
Hmm.
it is the okay. But you said something there that kind of resonates with me when I think about a magnet. You know, if you've put the wrong magnet next to it, it repels it,
That's right.
and the right one, boom, it sinks. So I
Yep.
do think there is a value of showing who you are because, for example, I'll give you kind of a short, for example. I recently interviewed a CEO. I'm not going to mention who he is, but I did just finish reading his book, and I think we've got another podcast set up in a couple months. But point is, running a very big company, um, come to find out that he had written a book, and as I was reading it, I happened to notice he started talking a little bit about something religious or faith based. Now, none of that actually came up, but when you read the book, you got to see more of the person's personality. And I thought that was kind of interesting because that may attract people to him, to his company, but at the same time, people who maybe don't want anything that touches on religion at all, it's going to repel them. And that
Hmm.
really benefits both people, to be
100%.
honest.
Yes.
It absolutely is a benefit because if that's a massive turnoff for you, wouldn't you want to know that? Why go through a long process and then find out the CEO is faith based? Now that's maybe a strange comment for me to make, like that'd be a turnoff, but um, Chick-fil-A here in the South. everyone knows that they are a religious organization. And so,
Yep.
you're not going to go work at the corporate office. I'll just tell you, you will not get a job at that corporate office if that's a turnoff for you.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
not. So I think that's a great idea to, and your point, to let's just get this in your profile, who
Yeah.
you are, how you accomplish what it is you're doing,
Right. Yeah,
right? It's
like,
not just what you did. How did you do it?
yes. And that, I think, is the other piece that is so critical about LinkedIn that most people underestimate. Most people view LinkedIn as a job board, right? So they're there once every few years when they're looking for something new,
Oh, that's
and
true.
they update their profile, and then they apply for some jobs, and maybe they find their network and they try and, network their way into something new. But in between those job searches, they're not really spending much time on the platform. And that's a tremendous missed opportunity, because talking about your lived experience on LinkedIn is a great way to build a following, build an audience, add value to your network in between searching for jobs, so that you might not ever really have to look for a job again, right? I've had every career opportunity that I've had come through LinkedIn. Either it landed in my lap, like the example I gave you at the top of the podcast, or um, I find people who are in decision making roles at companies that wanted to work at, and I started building connections with them and relationships. And the whole idea is, when you're building a personal brand, you just want to get people to see who you are, how you do things, why you do what you do, and get them thinking, would this be somebody who might be fun to work with? Would this be a good person to work with? If you can get people thinking about that, then you're top of mind. And that's the beauty of a personal brand, right? It's a long term marketing play. You're not necessarily going to manifest opportunity overnight. But if you continue to put the reps in, and you show up on the platform once or twice a week with a post, and you build connections with people in your space, and you start to have conversations on the platform, which LinkedIn is very, very focused on. They love people talking on the platform. Then you will notice that a lot more opportunity finds you than if you just never showed up. If you just treated it again like a job board,
A
right?
number of questions popped in my head,
Yeah.
but I know the listeners are going to get mad at me if you don't finish the 4 pillars. So before I get us off track, I'm famous for that. So go ahead, let's finish that section, and then a
Okay.
couple other thoughts just kind of popped in my head. So the first one was
Get your profile
finishing your profile up and
to a
running and
landing. Think
using.
about it like a landing page for your brand. You are a brand, whether you like to think so or not, right? Some people think that the term personal brand is a little bit icky. They think it's a bit contrived, but everybody has a personal reputation, and there's a difference, right? Most of your professional experience and your reputation in business stems from working relationships you've had with people that you've worked with in the past. But there's also a brand that you can project to people you might work with in the future. And that is what personal branding does on LinkedIn. It puts you on the radar of people who might be able to create opportunity for you, who might want you in their organization, or might want to work with you in some capacity. And if you're not putting that stuff out there, then you're missing out on all of those eyeballs, and you're not in anybody's top of mind, right?
Right.
So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is really understanding that LinkedIn is a gold mine of first party information. If you wanted to identify product managers in companies that are in a specific city or in a specific industry, um, or of a specific size, all of that information just lives on LinkedIn. And you would have to pay good money to a company like Meta to advertise, to get in touch with those people if you were running a campaign, right? But on LinkedIn, they're there, and they're there for not the taking, but they're there for you to build relationships with if you want to. And so treating LinkedIn like your own, sort of like the world's largest CRM. All the leads are in there already, whether that's job prospects or whether that's client prospects. They're all hanging out on LinkedIn. There's a billion
That's
people on the
true.
platform. Now,
You're
the
saying
other
just take advantage. I don't mind using the word take advantage. It just means the information is there. There's no better way to say it.
right,
You're saying take advantage of the information that the other people have put out there about
absolutely,
themselves. Yeah.
that's right. And it's not that dissimilar from networking offline, except that it's far more efficient. If
But give
you
us an
go,
example though. I don't
sure,
mean necessarily a profile because I know we might look at a profile later,
yeah, yeah,
but give me another example. Like, what are you referring to? Like this first party information. Maybe something specific will help us.
yeah. Well, it's basically LinkedIn. That's the whole second pillar. LinkedIn has all the world's professionals on there for the most part. Not everyone dials in there all the time. They're not in there every day like I am, but they're all there. And so if you wanted to build a network of product managers who work at small to medium sized technology companies in the Northeast, you could do that. You can add 100 people per week to your network. You can build connection with them. You can let them know that you're in the space. You can let them know you're just trying to expand your network within the product
Okay,
marketing
that's
or
what you
product
mean.
management.
You mean
Yeah.
specifically searching for
Yes.
the people that you want to connect with for whatever your purpose, whatever your
That's right.
reason.
Yep.
So it's 100,
100 per week is what you
a
can
100
add.
per week. So
Yep.
what, 20 a day.
Yep.
So you could run a search. And you don't now let me ask you, you may pay for something on link. What about if you don't pay? What if you just have like the free account? Do you have to upgrade
If you have
at
the
all? I
free
know there's
if you have the free account, you have some limitations, right? So you can only send like 5 personalized invites out if you have the free plan. If you have the premium plan, which I think is 29 or 39 bucks a month, you can send unlimited personalized messages. You can see interesting stats about companies. So, for example, if I'm a job seeker and I'm looking for a product management role, and I look at a company's page on LinkedIn, I can see if they're growing in headcount or if they're decreasing in headcount. That might change the decision that I make
that's an
to apply to that
indicator.
company, right? Yeah. If they're growing like crazy, I'm probably going to reach out to some of the people on their team and congratulate them on the growth and see if they'd be willing to connect with me and just talk shop about product management, right? It's very similar to showing up at a networking event, shaking hands with people, introducing yourself, telling them your story. But at a networking event, you might walk out of that event. You're limited by the people that are at the event. You're limited by the geography that you're in. Whereas on LinkedIn, the sky's the limit. You can network with people on the other side of the country. You can network with people on the other side of the world, right? I have a client that I worked with last month from New Zealand. I would not be able to do that if I wasn't actively marketing myself on LinkedIn. So, really figuring out how do you leverage this really powerful platform, this database full of the world's professionals to build meaningful relationships that could be mutually beneficial at some point in time. And so, a lot of people don't even know how do you do a LinkedIn search for people. They know how to do it for jobs, but they don't necessarily do it for people. You can do it for posts. So if you're trying to find people who are creating content about a specific type of topic, you can do that. There's so many different ways that you can find people that you might want to network with on LinkedIn. And so I teach that as the second pillar, right? It's like, how do you really leverage this platform to find the people that you want to network with so you can build a better, more robust network that is hopefully advantageous to you at some point in time?
Yeah, so take advantage of the fact that this is a networking platform.
That's right.
I think what you're trying to open people's mind is this is not just a place that you go when you're desperate and out of work
That's right.
and you're scrambling to find something. Okay.
That's right.
And it sounds like it is a wise investment. If you're a business owner, this should be just be a no-brainer.
Business owner, you should be using Sales Navigator. Like that is
Yeah,
the most premium. But yeah, I mean, I have
correct.
always viewed LinkedIn as an investment in my career. Uh, I view other social channels, other social media as kind of a waste of my time. But I view
That's
LinkedIn as an investment of
that
time.
could be very true, very true. Now, for those people who are in product, they may push back and say, Insta is great. And that's true. If you are, we're talking a service here. If you're in product and it's a tangible product, of course, there's a place, on Insta.
Hmm.
But for us in the business world, I think that that's a valid point. Okay, so what's the third pillar?
Third pillar is content. So I try to encourage people to create content on the platform. And this is probably one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do because
I
there's
think
this
that one is.
feeling of a lot of people don't view LinkedIn as a content platform. A lot of people worry that if they put content out, they might actually jeopardize opportunities for themselves. They worry that somebody's going to see that post and not like it, and then that will result in them not reaching out about an opportunity. But to your point earlier, it makes a lot of sense to do that because I would rather somebody look at my profile on LinkedIn and say, he's not my cup of
Not a
tea.
fit, not a fit for us.
Right.
You
Rather,
want that.
exactly. Instead of, let's invite him in. Let's see if
Let's
this might
waste
be a good
all
partnership.
this time.
Precisely. I don't want to waste 4 hours interviewing or have all these discovery calls if it's just not really a fit. So that whole attract versus detract or repel analogy is
Great
just
point.
on the spot. So now let's think about, people are always like, well, I'm not an expert. What gives me the right to talk about this? Who cares what I have to say? I mean, these are very common things that I hear from clients all the time. And the truth is that your network generally does want to hear from you, right? They are in your network for a reason, and they probably want to see the things that are happening in your life. And so I think that is an insecurity that a lot of people feel, but it's just not logical, right? Um, I think you need to think about it from an abundance mindset. What if somebody, the VP of product or the head of sales, the VP of sales, chief revenue officer at a company, or chief marketing officer at a company sees you, follows you for 6 months, and then is like, I need to figure out a way to get that person in the door. That's what happened to me. And so I think people need to think about the possibilities that creating content on the platform creates for them from an opportunity standpoint.
This you have really touched on the psychology that people struggle with, and I can tell you firsthand when I was running our direct hire team of recruiters, I could not get them to make postings on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
right.
And I gave up, honestly. I was like, okay, fine. You can post the fact that you have a job. Let me just tell you, that's probably the most boring post you can put out there,
Hmm.
in my personal opinion. I
Hmm.
said, I would much rather you post something about what you did that weekend. Show us you went and found a new restaurant that you loved. Tell
Yep.
us why. And they're like, it's LinkedIn. And I'm like, I know, but you're human, you
Yes.
know?
What's the
And
first question people ask their colleagues on Monday morning?
hey, how was your weekend?
When's the last
Well, I
time?
posted a job on LinkedIn. That was my weekend. What? What's wrong with you?
When's the last time somebody refused to answer that question because this is a professional environment? This is an office. I don't
My
talk about what
God,
I did on the
we're
weekend in the office.
working. I'm going to call HR.
Exactly. It doesn't happen that way. And so I think that, if you just think about it, I tell people, think about LinkedIn content as if you're writing in a journal that you would share with family, friends, and colleagues. So
Hmm.
it kind of keeps you within the bounds of, you're not going too far into the direction of
There is a
politics. Or,
line out there. You're
yeah,
not
it's
going to,
totally
come
aligned.
on, common
You
sense.
you want to be the best version of yourself, and you want to try and avoid inflammatory conversation and things that might make you look bad. But if you think about it that way, I've found that helps because you're just writing your lived experience and you're sharing that with the world. You're sharing that with your network. I mean, I view LinkedIn as more of a legacy platform. Like I'm building my professional and
It's
personal
interesting that
legacy.
you say that. It's interesting that you say that. Yeah, because it's not going to go away,
Right.
and the number of your followers. The other day, I made such a random post and I was wondering if I should do it, but I was kind of hearkening back to some of the things I had seen on your page and some other people that were doing this. So I did something totally different for me. We started a garden.
Nice.
Um, we moved up. We're a little bit north now of Atlanta. We've got a couple, we have more space around us. Let me put it to you that way. So I'm
Sure.
able to do this. And I went out and videoed our first harvest.
No,
And oh
nice.
my Lord, the amount of stuff that I pulled out of those raised beds.
Yep.
And I took a number of little videos and I just threw one up on LinkedIn. And I was just like, hey, this is a great way. This is something that I think we should all be striving to do, and that's be a little more self-sufficient. You're gonna feel better if you're self-sufficient. It's a it's a quality that we kind of have to remind ourselves. You know,
Absolutely.
I kind of went on. I made a little post about it, but I mean, in my mind, that makes sense. So this is one of your points. Like that's kind of random,
Yeah.
but what if there's a chief marketing officer one day and he and his wife, maybe they love gardening or something, it's
Yeah.
like, hey, I have something in common with that guy.
Exactly.
You don't
Icebreaker.
know.
It's an icebreaker, right? Like in my headline,
There you go.
I have that I'm a family man. I have that I am an AI and blockchain bull. So people obviously know that I'm
I've
interested in those
noticed
things.
that.
And I have hot sauce aficionado. And I don't know if you see behind me here, but those are all hot sauces.
Hold on. Let's come in a little closer.
Those are all hot sauce racks. And
Oh, wow.
50% of the hot sauce in my collection, there's more in the kitchen, have come from people I've met on LinkedIn. People who just like the fact that I'm obsessed with hot sauce.
So
And
they'll send you one.
they might send me one. They think of me when they see a post about hot sauce and I get tagged there. They might see a chili pepper somewhere on the platform and tag me in there. And that is just another little sort of
That's
calling card,
fun.
a little signal that puts me at the front of people's minds. And when you're
Mhm.
at the front of people's minds, that's when opportunity finds you instead of you finding it, right? So that's really where I tell people to lean in. I mean, to your point, like if you are a green thumb and you have a big garden with a lot of stuff in it, and somebody that you end up talking to for the first time also happens to enjoy that, then you have something to talk about that's more
Rather than it's a great
valuable
icebreaker.
than, hey, how's the weather? Right? Like the weather is boring. Like talk about what you do, talk about what you liked. So for me, LinkedIn content has always sort of been an amalgamation of me following my fascination, feeding my curiosity, and just sharing that with people on the platform. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, that's fine too. It's no skin off my back, right? Um, in terms of the content breakdown, I tend to sort of tell people that they should think about their content from three different buckets. The first bucket is your scope of genius content. And this is the type of stuff that you're really focusing on talking about what you do, how you do it, why you do it, right? The successes that you have, the value that you deliver. You're writing to sort of put yourself on display a little bit and attract people to the fact that this is what you do and this is why you do it. And that should be like 60% of your content. The second bucket is fascination. So we all have personal interests that maybe there's a little bit of overlap with our professional life, but they're they're adjacent, right? And so that's where my hot sauce lives. I have dubbed my fascination innovation and food and innovation. Those are my two passions. So that's where I talk about content like AI, right? If you go to my profile today, you'll see that I did a post where I had AI create an image of myself with a Tabasco bottle, and I said, this is like a cologne commercial, and there's a bunch of people talking about it now. And you're really just letting people see who you are as a person and what you're interested in. And the reason that it's important to share that content is because there's not everybody in your network is going to be somebody that hires you. Majority are not. Not everybody in your network is going to be people who will become your clients someday, but you still want to keep them engaged. You still want to keep them entertained and informed and educated in things that your knowledge is valuable. And so you share those things, and that is endearing to people. And when you endear yourself to others, they want to help you out, they want to lift you up. So that's why I encourage people to do that. And then the third bucket, and sorry, the fascination topics, I typically say should be like 30% of your content, right? So you're definitely creating content that is professionally focused most of the time,
Yeah.
but you also sprinkle in a couple things that are fun about yourself. And then the third is what I call windows into your personal world content. And that is the stuff that's a little bit more vulnerable. It's a little more emotionally raw. It takes a little bit more effort to push the post button on that stuff. But it's also typically the stuff that resonates the most with people. So my best performing post on LinkedIn in the last 365 days is me dressed as a s'more. I have two pieces of cardboard, Hershey's chocolate bars
I'm gonna have
taped
to look
to
for
it,
this one now.
and it got 500,000 impressions and about 4,000 engagements. Uh, all I said in the post was, "Here's my value-based tip for Halloween: don't dress like a s'more." And it just went crazy because it made people laugh, and because there aren't really that many 300-pound men who are putting pictures of themselves in s'mores costumes out on LinkedIn. So it immediately had that like differentiation factor. I was being vulnerable, right? I was posting a picture of myself that most people aren't used to seeing on a platform, and so there's a vulnerability component there that is a magnet for folks. And at the end of the day, if people don't like it, I mean, I ended up on LinkedIn Lunatics for that post, which is a part of Reddit where they just tear people down on LinkedIn, but I didn't care. And actually, one of the things that was most enjoyable about that experience is that I was in that Reddit forum, and there were people who were actually defending me in the Reddit forum. There were people saying, "No, no, no, he's a good one. We like him. He's a good guy. He's
That's
one of the good ones."
awesome. I mean, so I don't know who said it, but any kind of PR can be good PR
That's it.
to
Um,
some degree.
yeah. So those are the three content pillars, and then the fourth sort of pillar that I teach is and this is where sort of my focus on founders and small business owners comes in, is blending my operations experience with that innovation curiosity that I have, and teaching people how to leverage Sales Navigator, right? Because it is an incredibly powerful version of LinkedIn that can change the game for you. I mean, frankly, if you're in business on LinkedIn and you're not using Sales Navigator, you're missing out a lot. But also just really making sure that people see all the different tools that I use to create content. There's a lot of people who haven't the faintest idea how to create video clips, for example. And LinkedIn is doubling down on video. They really want to become a video platform. And there are tools out there that make it super easy to create these things. And a lot of people don't know about it, and they're a little bit too intimidated to try. So I really try and help people figure out, look, like here are all the tools that I use to run my business and to create content in an efficient way. And I can teach them to do that too. And that'll hopefully help them build their personal brand in a stronger way.
I mean, just
Um,
look at the rise of shorts and reels. I mean, that's how many people get exposed to new channels now,
that's right.
and they became so popular that I want to say that YouTube is now extended the length of time. It used to be under 60 seconds or right at 60. They've now pushed it up now. I think your shorts can be as much as, don't quote me, but like 2.5 minutes.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
They
Yeah, I don't
pushed it
spend a
open.
ton of time on YouTube myself,
Oh, I
but
love YouTube. I
I
love YouTube. I between that and my AI assistant, I'm always learning something there. But there's just a couple channels that I just love on YouTube,
oh, I
and
love
we have
digesting.
on.
I love digesting. I love consuming content on YouTube. I just haven't produced content there.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I just upload it. I mean, I upload it. Yeah.
nice.
I mean, it's like all like this podcast, for
Yeah,
example,
right.
not only is it going to be, it'll be on Spotify, and seeing Spotify added video. This is just to support your point
Yep,
about video. That's really all I'm saying is that Spotify added video to their podcast. iTunes doesn't do that. Okay.
right.
That's a Spotify thing, which is why I think Spotify is now better.
Mm,
But I still think more downloads come off of iTunes. But I still think Spotify is better for the video. I guess we can thank Joe Rogan when they signed him for like 250 million.
sounds
And
about right.
then it's
Probably
huge.
helped.
I mean, I think that helped.
Yeah,
It kind
a
of,
little.
and then a lot of the other podcasters started putting theirs in video. And so, anyway, between that and then, of course, Facebook, all the little shorts and reels. So, and LinkedIn doesn't want to be left behind.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
what's the fourth? I didn't quite get the fourth one. What's the fourth pillar?
So the fourth is essentially supercharging your network and content creation process. That's
Mm,
kind of the bucket that I put it in. So I teach you all the basics, and then I kind of in the fourth week really go deep on, okay, now we're going to supercharge this.
right. Getting a system down,
Yep.
getting your tools put in place because you need a few tools. I mean, you do
Yep.
need a few little things. And we're not gonna. This is not the podcast for us to get into that, but there are a lot of free tools out there that people can use. And then
Yep.
once you get familiar with them, you can spend a small amount of money,
Yep.
and it gives you a couple of the premium features. Once you begin to see the power of it. What's your fifth and final pillar?
There's only four. Yeah, those are the four.
Awesome. I don't know why I wrote down five.
That's all right.
Four is a round. I guess four is even, but I don't know. It's five round. I don't know. That's great. I did have a couple other questions because I know we're running a little short on time. I could easily talk to you for an hour,
Yeah,
easily.
me too.
It's just that I have been, and I've mentioned this before. I've gotten a lot of feedback that people sometimes don't like to go that long on podcasts, but man, there's just so much more here. Okay, maybe just how do you truly build that engagement? I think that's the area that maybe people would say they have the hardest time with is
Yeah.
getting the engagement. They can okay, that's fine. We can upgrade our profile, we can do these things, and we can try to, connect with more people. But, I suffer from this too. Like, I
Mhm.
think I put something out there that I like, low impressions, low engagement. And for people who maybe are trying for the first time, maybe it becomes discouraging to them. How do you do this?
That's kind of where the journal analogy came from, because I spent a lot of time coaching people to pay less attention to the metrics and pay more attention to just writing almost for themselves. And that to me is a cathartic exercise, right? I like sharing my opinion with folks, and I'm a little bit less focused on the engagement and the impressions, although I'm fortunate that I get a lot of that. But I've been building that for 5 years. It's taken a long time.
Mm,
LinkedIn is not an easy platform to grow on. They have gone on record as saying that when something goes viral on LinkedIn, they view that as a failure because they don't really want it to become a bombastic platform where people are just trying to rig
kind
the
of
system.
outdoing each other.
Yeah,
I've got to do one. You've got to do one. They kind of want this,
exactly.
or I guess they want the organic.
Yep. So the best way to do it is put content out there that's meaningful to you, um, and engage with other people who are on the platform having conversations. So you want to find people who are posting content. You want to find people who are leaving comments on content, and you want to get into those conversations. And that's a good way to get started. And then if you have a good little banter in somebody's comment section, then you add them as a connection and you send them a DM and you just start a conversation with them. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed your take on that post from so and so. Thought it might make sense to connect with you and make the world a little bit smaller, right? That's really sort of the objectives there. And so
You
I think
told me that we might get some excitement later in the afternoon,
you
and
hear
I
that?
was really hoping. So for those of you who don't know, he was like, Liam's like, I really think we should do our podcast early in the morning. And I'm like, I'm busy. I can't do it. And he's like, yeah, but the last time I was on Zoom, my son came in without his shirt on and took
Yep.
something off my desk. He tried to do it quietly.
Yep.
And I thought, you know what? I would love for that to happen.
Well, the door's locked this time, so
So
that
you're
ain't
not, damn it.
happening.
But I will say this. I'm gonna throw the wrap up music in here.
Sure.
Now, this is not the hook. I'm not throwing the hook out on you. What I'm saying is we had a lot more that we actually wanted to get to today. And I think what we're going to have to do is a part two, because
Sounds
this
good.
is naturally the kind of conversation that people might want to see, maybe more than just hear. And obviously, you've got one of the best LinkedIn profiles. There might be some others that we can look at. I think it could be a helpful exercise. The whole point of this, folks, is that I'm meeting people on the Learning and Development podcast for you then to connect with, and it grow and expand yourself. So that's what I'm hoping here, is that for those of you who are on the fence, go ahead and start that journey of building your profile out and doing more. And if you get to the point where you're like, hey, I need a little more help, there's professionals out there. Liam is someone who I just love your style. By the
Thank you.
way, we don't have much more time. Your Clifton strengths, talking about your style, you have woo. Woo is your number one quality. I have never seen woo as number one. What in the hell is woo?
I,
Finish us up with that.
I believe that woo is basically my ability to relate to other people and understand them. Empathy is something that I've always kind of viewed as a superpower of mine, and I love meet, meeting people and building relationships. It's the most important thing in my life. So, LinkedIn is a natural place for me to hang out and spend time because that's the primary focus of a lot of people there.
Woo. If you don't know what
Woo.
I'm talking about, folks, go take the Clifton Strengths Finder. And I'm telling you, Liam would agree with me on this 100%.
Yeah, put
Go
them in
take
your
your
about
Clifton.
section. They're in my about section. Put them in your about
I'm going to
section.
make sure mine are in there because it's awesome. My gosh, 45 minutes. I was supposed to do 30. No chance today at doing that. And I blame the great content of Liam. It's your fault, buddy.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
Sorry, but not sorry. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of who the heck knows what we're going to name this one. Something about personal branding and your ICP on LinkedIn. We'll see everybody next time on JobTopia.
Thanks for having
See
me.
you, Liam.
Take care.